A land that has fascinated its peoples with its unrivaled beauty and miraculous nature, that has become poetry and music on their tongues, with every inch, every stone, tracing the blood memory and culture of the Azerbaijani Turks. Goycha Province. My dear, to your tongue, to your lips and your tongue, I'd sacrifice myself for Goycha from your tongue. We are speaking of Goycha, a land of ice-cold springs, green meadows, of blue-eyed Goycha Lake embraced by high peaks, and reminding us of the Ashik poet nourishing our souls, of its people's special courage and hospitality, a remembrance of the Oghuz. In this film, we will speak of one of Azerbaijan's greatest losses of culture and historical geography, a hearth lost to us. Goycha, a lost hearth. Master Ashik Allah praises Goycha in his lyrical Güzeleme. However long I roam the lands of Turan, still my own lands I yet call to mind. Sarina pastures, Goycha terrain, my own fair lands I yet call to mind. The 19th century Russian historian Ivan Chopin hailed Goycha as the Switzerland of the South Caucasus. Goycha province is part of the area in which the Azerbaijani nation was formed. Goycha's Turkic toponyms, its historical and cultural monuments, in parts of what is now Armenia, prove this region to be the ancient land of Azerbaijani Turkic tribes. Goycha province is surrounded by the Pambak mountain range to the north, the Murgiz range to the northeast, the Shagdag range to the east, the Bazarkecher mountains to the south, and to the west, the Agmagan range. The Altun Takt Shrine, the Gozel Dere, Dere Çiçek, Basar Kecher, and Chubuglu pastures, and lands like Shishkaya, Agbolak, Kasaman, Tokluja, Sarıyogub, Agkilse, Jil, Shurja, Karakoyonlu, Kever, Ashagi Karanlik, and Zod were historically lands of the Azerbaijani Turks. The province's name derives from the name of the lake. In the Oghuz Turkic epic The Book of Dede Korkut and other Oghuz legends, this lake is called the Gokcha Dengiz. For example, Goycha, from the word for blue sea, because it reflects the color of the sky. More than 30 rivers, large and small, run into the Goycha Lake at 1900 meters above sea level. The Zengi River starts from Goycha Lake and joins the river Araz in Agri Valley. Examples of the tangible cultures of the Oghuz, Kipchak and Albanian peoples found in Goycha reflect their history and lifestyle. The Iskit, Sak, Albanian, Karkar, Etiu, Oghuz and Kipchak tribes were the ancient people of the Goycha Basin. Traces of ancient people from the Stone Age onwards can be found on Goycha territory. Sources of potable water and abundant flora and fauna facilitated the emerging of ancient human settlement here. Dolichocranic skulls discovered in the Bronze Age kurgans of Ordekli, Delkardash, Naradus and Arayaman indicate that the ancient people who lived here belonged to Turkic tribes. Skulls found in the kurgans of different regions of Azerbaijan, including Kobustan, Nakhchivan, Dashkezen, Karabakh and Mingechevir, belong genetically to the same racial type as the anthropological characteristics of the local Goycha Turkic people. The fortresses in Goycha, Senger, Berkala, Kipchak, Kolagiren, and Atam Khan would have protected the local Turkic people that lived here from invasion. The inscription on the treasure gates stones in eastern Anatolia and that on the Kolagiren fortress to the south of Goycha Lake concern attacks by the Urartu kings Sarduri II and Rusa I on the Goycha Basin in the 8th century, and the Iskit, Alban, Karkar, Uti, Kaman, Kever and other tribes that lived here. The territories around Goycha were a part of the Ishguz-Ichuguz state in early 1st millennium BC. Sakasena, which was the western district of the Caucasian Albanian state, covered the north part of Goycha Lake. Sakasena was surrounded by Ursak and Uti districts to the east and Sisakan district to the south. According to the Albanian historian Moses Kalankatuklu, the plains and mountains of the Albanian state from the Aras River to the Hunan fortress were controlled by brave men of Sak origin. In the early Middle Ages, the local Turkic groups mixed with the newly arriving Hun tribes, and as a result, Turkic peoples became the main ethnic factor in the South Caucasus. In this period, most of the local Turkic peoples followed the Tengri religion, but Kipchak Turks and Albanians had adopted Christianity. With the spread of Islam in the mid-7th century across the South Caucasus, Oghuz people in Goycha converted. A group of Kipchaks in the area kept their Christian faith. In the Book of Dede Korkut, the Goycha Lake Basin is among the territories ruled by Kazan Khan, the Khan of the Oghuz people. Even though the Turkic groups in Goycha adopted Islam, they resisted the Arab occupation. Babek, leader of the rebellious Kuramite movement, came to assist rebels in the lands south of Goycha Lake in 827. With the weakening of the Arab Caliphate in the second half of the 9th century, the old statehood traditions revived in the territories of Azerbaijan. The Sajid dynasty of Turkic origin that for the first time united Azerbaijan in a single state defended Goycha province against external attacks. Sajid coins were stamped with the name Azerbaijan. In the mid-12th century, when Goycha province was part of the Eldiguzid state, it had to withstand attacks by Georgians. Emir Timur, Tamerlane, seized the lands between Karabakh and Goycha Lake in the 1380s, basing his army around the lake and organizing attacks on neighboring regions from there. In the 15th century, Goycha was part of, first, the Karakoyunlu and then the Akhoyunlu states. The golden period of Goycha's history was during the reign of the Akhoyunlu Hasan Padishah. By his order, Abu Bakr Terani wrote the Kitab-i Bakriya about the history of the Oghuz people. It tells the story of Goycha province as the center of the Oghuz people, the lives of Oghuz Khan and Bayandur Khan in the pastures of Goycha and their burials here. Before establishing his Safavid state, Shah Ismail went to Goycha to join forces with the Turkic people there and later to followers in eastern Anatolia. War between the Safavid and Ottoman states in the 16th to 18th centuries destroyed peaceful life in Goycha. In this period, Goycha province was a part of the Chukursad administrative area situated on the border of the Safavid and Ottoman states. In the review of Erivan province in 1728, the following Turkic Muslim settlements were recorded: 17 in the Derechichek area, 48 in the Goycha area, and 45 in the Marja area of Goycha province. Erivan was one of the Khanets that emerged in the territories of Azerbaijan following the death of Nadir Shah in 1747. Goycha was the largest province in the Erivan Khanet. Kever was the center of the province, peopled mainly by crop and poultry farmers. The troops raised from Goycha under Nagi Khan was part of the 5,000-strong army of the Khan of Erivan. 67 Azerbaijani villages of Goychar were destroyed during the Russian invasion of the Yerevan Khanate in October 1827. According to the Treaty of Adrianople of 1829, the Russians moved 1,485 Armenian families, for example, 8,557 Armenian refugees, from the Ottoman Empire to Goychar province. According to the Russian researcher Nikolai Shavrov, the number of Armenian people here was very small compared to that of the local Azerbaijani people prior to the migration. The Novobayazid region, including the former Goychar province, was part of the Yerevan Governorate, established by the Russian Emperor Nikolai I in 1849. The region was so named as the Armenians were moved to these territories mainly from the Bayazid Pashalik of the Ottoman state. Armenians were also moved to Goychar from the Ottoman Bitlis, Mush and Sasun districts. During the Russian-Turkish War of 1877 to 1878, General Ter Kukasov moved more Armenians to Novobayazid from the Ottoman state. An ethnographic map of the Yerevan Governorate of 1886 shows that Azerbaijani Turks were still the majority in the Goychar Lake basin. The Russian Empire's movement of massive numbers of Armenians to the Goychar area exerted great pressure on the Azerbaijani population. The demographic situation changed markedly to the benefit of the Armenians. As a result of a policy of Russification, people of the Molokan sect were also moved to villages in Goychar, previously settled by Azerbaijanis, leading to the emergence of Russian villages like Yelenovka, Nadezhino, Alexandrovka, Konstantinovka and Mikhailovka. Most Russian Molokans have since left Armenia for Russia following persecution, and Armenians have settled in their villages. In the early 20th century, armed groups of the Armenian Dashnak Sutyun and Hunchak parties, benefiting from the pro-Armenian position of the Caucasus Viceroyalty, executed massive carnages of the Azerbaijani people. Villages in the Goychar province were also destroyed and Armenians were settled there in 1905. Lieutenant Colonel Avalov, chief of the Yelizavetpol district, reported that on 14th of May 1906, Armenian armed groups had attacked Goychar and attempted to capture factories and mines belonging to the Siemens brothers in Kadabay. The attacks on Azerbaijani villages were conducted with arms transported across Goychar Lake from Kever to the village of Chemberek. In one such attack, the Armenians fell into a trap in Suladara near Akhbulak village, suffered great losses and fled, leaving their weapons behind. In late May 1918, the first Armenian state in history, the Republic of Armenia, was established on the land of the former Yerevan Khanate in the South Caucasus, alongside the states of Azerbaijan and Georgia. At this time, the east and southeast of Goychar Lake was indisputably part of Azerbaijani territory. According to the Treaty of Batumi, signed by the Ottoman state and Dashnak Armenia on 4th of June 1918, the territory of Armenia was about 9,500 square kilometers. This included part of the Novobayazid, Yerevan, Etchmiadzin and Alexandropol regions, with the exception of the northeast of Goychar Lake. Even though Dashnak Armenia guaranteed the security of the local Azerbaijani population under the Treaty of Batumi, Andranik, a leader of Armenian armed forces, attacked and destroyed Azerbaijani villages along the western shore of the lake. In his book, Memoirs of an Armenian Revolutionary, Ruben Ter Minassian a former defense minister in the Armenian Dashnak government, stressed Goychar's strategic importance and that Azerbaijan could reach Vedibasar through the Jingin Valley across those lands and thus connect directly with Turkey. He compared the Goychar province to a sword of Damocles hanging over districts of Armenia. When the Ottoman army left the South Caucasus in accordance with the Armistice of Mudros, signed on 30th of October 1918, the Dashnaks took the opportunity to attack the Basarkecher district of Goychar and killed civilians in the villages of Boyok Mazra, Kizilveng, Subatan, Sagali and Shahab, mainly populated by Azerbaijanis. Dashnak leaders Silikov and Kachaturov, who tried to forcefully extract taxes on 28th of February 1919 in Zod and surrounding villages, met resistance and were killed by the furious people of Goychar. The Dashnaks intended to capture the gold mines and connect with Armenians living in Karabakh by capturing the Zod Pass. The people of Goychar organized self-defense groups led by Mashadi Isa and Agalabey Kasamansky and declared themselves subjects of the Republic of Azerbaijan in the document The Communal Order. Groups led by Samad Agha, Jigald Hassan, Topal Oruj and Mashadi Humbat also resisted the invasion of Goychar from 1918 to 1920 with great courage. Under the guise of reconciliation, the Armenians invited Saman Agha of Zod to the village of Basarkecher, and on the Novruz holiday 1919, Samad Agha, Ashik Najaf and Tenriverdi Oglu Alekber, who went to the meeting, were brutally murdered there. The Armenian historian Anahid Lalalian described the brutality of a Dashnak officer, Vahram, in Basarkecher in his own words in the magazine Revolutionny Vostok in 1936. "I killed the Turkish people in Basarkecher with no other consideration, but sometimes I didn't feel like wasting bullets. The best thing to do was to drop all the survivors of the battle into a water well and cover them with heavy stones so that no trace of them would be left. This is what I did." In all, Armenian armed groups destroyed 84 Azerbaijani villages in Novobayazid region from 1918 to 1919, conducting a genocide of their people. The Azerbaijani parliament adopted a decree establishing Shamkhor region that included the west of Ganjar region and part of Novobayazid region on 22nd of April 1920. However, this law was never enforced as the Republic of Azerbaijan fell a few days later. The Republic of Azerbaijan was invaded by Soviet Russia in late April 1920. A Dashnak government was in power in Armenia. Secret anti-Azerbaijan deals between Soviet Russia and Dashnak Armenia resulted in the loss of Goychar. The undisputed border between Soviet Azerbaijan and Dashnak Armenia had passed across the center of Goychar Lake. After the establishment of Soviet rule in Armenia in November 1920, the whole of the former Erivan region, including the Goychar Lake Basin, was integrated into Soviet Armenia by an agreement between Soviet Russia and Soviet Armenia on 2nd of December. According to the Union Agreement of the Central Executive Committees of Azerbaijan, Georgia and Armenia adopted in March 1922, the Shahdag Range was made the border between Soviet Armenia and Soviet Azerbaijan, and thus the entire historical Goychar region of Azerbaijan was given to Armenia. With Soviet rule established in Armenia, Azerbaijanis returned to the 65 villages in Goychar. However, some villages had been completely destroyed and some settled by Armenians. A resident of Goychar's Agkilser village, Ashuk Alesger, had left his home because of the Dashnak massacres. He had moved to Yanshak village in Kalbajar and then to Tartar, returning to Agkilsev in 1921 after the establishment of the Soviet regime in the region. According to statistics from 1931, 24,911 Azerbaijanis lived in the Goycha Lake Basin. During the early years of Soviet rule, groups led by Kachak Jamil, Mishadi Kurban and Mashadi Humbad, who refused to accept the nationalist separatist policy of the Armenian authorities in Goycha, fought against the high-ranking Armenian nationalists who were now in Bolshevik clothing. Around 400 families were deported from Goycha to Siberia and Kazakhstan as kulaks in this period. According to the new administrative division that took place in Soviet Armenia in 1930, the regions of Bazarkecher, Nor-Beyazid and Martuni were created in the Goycha Basin, and the regions of Krasnoselsky and Sevan were created there in 1937. The former name of Nor-Beyazid was Kever, Martuni had been Ashaga Karanluk, Sevan was previously Yenelovka, and Krasnoselsky was Mikhailovka. The Krasnoselsky Regional Center united the villages of Mikhailovka and Ashaga and Yukari Chemberek. In 1959, the region of Nor-Beyazid was renamed Kamo, and in 1969, the region of Bazarkecher was renamed Vardenis. The USSR Soviet of Ministers adopted a decree to forcefully move Azerbaijani people in the Armenia SSR from their native lands of the Kur-Araz plains of Azerbaijan on 23rd of December 1947. Under this decree, more than 10,000 Goycha Azerbaijanis were moved to different parts of Azerbaijan from 1948 to 1953. An Armenian plan to carry out massacres in the Azerbaijani villages of Krasnoselsky region on the eve of the 50th anniversary of the Armenian genocide in 1965 was foiled thanks to Ali Hassanov, the first secretary of the Krasnoselsky Regional Party Committee at the time. He warned Haydar Aliyev, the deputy chair of the Azerbaijan SSR State Security Committee, asking him to intervene, which was duly done with success. The final stage in the ethnic cleansing of the Turkic Muslim population of West Azerbaijan was completed from 1988 to 89. After Mikhail Gorbachev rose to power in 1985, Armenian claims on Azerbaijan recommenced. In response to these claims, Azerbaijani people living in the villages of Shishkaya and Narimanli in Bazarkecher region and the Golkend and Shorjari villages of Krasnodelsky region organized meetings from 15th of June 1988 with the slogans "Autonomy to the Goycha province," "Land cannot be gifted," and "Long live Azerbaijan." Over 60,000 Azerbaijanis from the Bazarkecher and Krasnoselsky regions who faced threats and armed attacks from the Armenians from 1988 to 89 were deported. With the banishment of Azerbaijani Turks from their homeland, Goycha, like all Armenia, was cleansed of Azerbaijani people. Great Goycha was left to strangers. The folk musicians of Goycha, who maintained the art of the traditional Ozan Ashik music, were known as Kam, Dede and Ozan. As Goycha is mentioned in the book of Dede Korkud as the land of Oghuz people, the existence of the village of Ozanla there and folk musicians including Ozan Jalil, Ozan Haidar and Ozan Ibrahim from those lands show that their Ashik music derives from those ancient traditions. While on the subject of the Ashiks in Goycha, one recalls the great holy man Miskin Abdal, originally from the Sariyagub village of Goycha, who served in the palace of Shah Ismail. These two great Sufi sheikhs called for an end to the war between the two great Turkic states, the Safavids and the Ottomans, and to stop the fratricide. If Turk hurts Ajam and Ajam hurts Turk, it is a sin. They are from the same root and their creator is Allah. The Ashik art reached its peak with Dede Alesker, an apprentice of Ashik Allah. The tall, strong Alesker would pluck the tar with his left hand with his right hand stopping the frets. His high-pitched voice charmed and fascinated audiences. his love for the nature of Azerbaijan was expressed thus: "Long live Karabakh! It is a wondrous delight. Kachin flowing to the head, Gargar to feet below. Goicha is weary of the white, but Mugan's longing now for snow." The 150th anniversary of Ashik Alesker's birth, celebrated in Baku and Moscow in 1972, exemplified the great value attached to the Ashik music of Goicha. The memorial on Ashik Alesker's grave in his native village of Agkilse is beyond the reach of Azerbaijanis today. One should also not forget Ashik Najaf, who was tortured to death in 1919 by Armenian Dashnaks. After Ashik Alesker, the folk musicians Novras Iman, Ashik Maharam, Ashik Musa, Ashik Asad and Ashik Talib kept Ashik traditions alive and handed them on to following generations. The historical and cultural monuments of Goicha prove that this was the ancient land of the people of Azerbaijan. In the Middle Ages, Kipchak and Albanian temples like Kizilbeng, Ayreveng, Aran and Jil were built here. These temples were converted to Gregorian churches by the Armenians. Ancient inscriptions on their walls were replaced by texts in Armenian and cross stones. Almost all Azerbaijani Turkic historical heritage has been destroyed. The Turkic cemetery of Naraduz, west of Goicha Lake, is also in ruins today. Goicha carpets, retaining memories of the ornamentations of thousands of years, are unique. The forms of carpet, shada, jajim, zili, heba, karal and kilim, that reflect the ancient Turkic motifs of Goicha are now claimed by Armenians, who present them as their own at various international exhibitions. The names of ancient Azerbaijani residential areas on Goicha province were first changed during the Russian Tsardom. Thus, Kever became Novobayazid, Boyok Ordekli became Yelenovka, Jerechichek became Konstantinovka, and Shorja became Nadejdino. Later, Goicha Lake was renamed Sevan, and the Sengi River became Razdan. In Soviet times, the replacement of Turkic toponyms with Armenian ones was almost finalized. Changing the name of Basarkercher to Verdenis and Dashkend in Hayrik, Shishgaya to Gekhamasa, Zod to Sotk, Akhbulag to Akhperek, Jil to Zorashen, Golkand to Agut, and Dokluja to Tarakchik was just part of the process of giving more than 100 Azerbaijani settlements in the Goicha Lake Basin Armenian names, thus attempting to erase the region's ancient traces. In this film, we have spoken about one of the Azerbaijani Turks' greatest losses, Goicha. Without its people, Goicha is a dead legend. They are its most treasured essence, carriers of the Oghuz spirit. We are all in debt to Goicha for the fact that the great art of the Ozan has reached our times. The people of Goicha live with that longing for their land and believe that they will return to the homes they were forced to leave. They believe that the composition Goicha Gulu, Flower of Goicha, will be played in Goicha festivities again, and the fascinating saz will sound in harmony with the folding waves of Goicha's lake. Even though the Azerbaijani Turks' hearth in Goicha is doused today, its embers still light our souls. Every Azerbaijani Turk believes that one day these embers will flame as a hearth once more.